What's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining us. Another episode of the Nerd Informer podcast. We have a special guest today, Judge Mentalist. Judge, I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'll let you give your introduction and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sounds good. I should start at the beginning, and then work my way through there. So before I got into anything like what we're talking about here today, and actually still, my day job, my main gig is that I am a practicing trial attorney. So I run a small law practice in Maryland, and some time ago, I can't even really tell when, I got kind of interested in the mystery arts, magic and mentalism and things like that, which I've had a curiosity about for as long as I can remember. But, I started learning things, and years ago, I approached a community theater in my town about, hey, you've got empty dates on your calendar, and I know that not everybody is Chick-fil-A and can just take a day off and run a sustainable business. I'm like, you should consider booking magicians at your theater. There's plenty of great acts that are touring. And the response I got was, that sounds great. You should book those magicians. So I started doing that for him. One of the first folks that we had in to perform asked me if I would open for him. At that point in time, I had done no stage performances of any kind or anything like that, but was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And I guess, when you're, as I've since learned, when you're an entertainer, you just say yes and then figure it out before it's time to do it. So that was kind of the start to me performing on stage. And then over time, I started developing a character, and then learned, and I'd always had an interest in hypnosis generally, but learned stage hypnosis, absolutely fell in love with it. No turning back. It is, for me, and the way that my shows run, the way that my shows are structured, it very, very much fits my personality a lot more than some of the other performance stuff that I was doing before. A lot of times you see magicians on stage and they're like, hey, look at me, look at this thing I just did. And, secretly, I'm an introvert that publicly plays the role of an extrovert. And that's not just when I'm on stage, that's just everywhere that I am. And so that's kind of like that persona really rubs me the wrong way. And what really unlocked the passion for me with hypnosis was the ability to, the show starts about me, but very, very quickly, it's about the folks that come up on stage, and my role shifts into becoming a director, and they really turn into the focal point and the stars of the show. And I know that a lot of people that are out there doing stage and comedy hypnosis, like that's their tagline, see the show or be the show. And it's the thing. It's why it's so many people's tagline, because you can go, the unfortunate thing from a marketing perspective is you can go see a great hypnosis show and forget who did the show. Because you're focused on those one or two people that really just knocked it out of the park that night. But it's a ton of fun. It gets me traveling all over the world. It's obviously my day job is a fairly stressful career for most people. So it serves as a great outlet to not want to, jump off a cliff or whatever.
Have you figured out a way to work your hypnotism into your practice?
Or do they second guess things when you say things? You're like, hey, is he trying to do
so when I originally started performing, I actually tried to keep the two worlds as separate as possible.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was only until probably about 3 or 4 years ago that I was working with Jeff McBride in Las Vegas and Larry Haas, who's the dean of the McBride Mystery School. And they kind of cornered me, and they were like, look, I know that you want to divide and conquer your day job, the day job, and you want to compartmentalize this. But being an attorney, being an influential person, being somebody that can do what you do is in and of itself a superpower. You really need to consider leaning into that on stage, which is really where the birth of Judge Mentalist came from, because that was not who I was before that conversation and before they pushed me in there. And I don't know how familiar. I mean, obviously you'll have some listeners that are more familiar in the magic world than others. When when you're part of the mystery world and Jeff McBride says, "Hey, you should consider this," you just do it. You don't question it. You just go. I mean, the guys
definitely set you down the right path.
Yeah, and it fits so well. It's in the personality, but it doesn't really. I still, the vast majority of my clients don't know what I do when I'm not there at the office or in the courtroom.
Right.
So from their perspective, I don't know how much it creeps in. I'd be lying if I told you that I haven't picked up on certain language styles and conversation structure that have allowed me to perhaps influence juries and even attorneys on the other side of cases sometimes, and claims adjusters and things like that. I would probably never get away with being able to just full on hypnotize a jury. Maybe when I'm really ready to just run away and join the circus.
That last case, I'll give it a shot.
Maybe I'll give it a shot. But as of right now, we're kind of it's kind of at a point where it's one of those things where it's like, man, this thing I'm doing over here is so much more fun.
Right?
Boy, oh boy, would my bank account be pissed if I walked away from this over here.
Yeah.
So there's a balance, and you kind of sometimes you just got to wake up and be like, look. Well, look yourself in the mirror and be like, that thing that you really want to run away and do, don't.
Right.
The nights, the weekends, occasionally doing fringe festivals, or in a couple weeks, I'm going to be out in Oregon doing a week's worth of shows at a county fair, like stuff like that.
That's
here
awesome.
and there. We've got some cruise ship stuff coming up that's not long term. Okay, fine, that's great. Go see the country, go see parts of the world. Do the thing that's fun, but then get the hell back here and make the real money.
Yeah.
So you're a hypnotist and a mentalist?
So if you were to try to book me to perform at your events, I would do everything that I can to get you to let me do my hypnosis show. I was doing mentalism before, and it's weird because, like, to me, the biggest adjustment was being in this world where on stage, almost everything that I am saying and almost everything that I'm telling you is a lie. Almost everything that I'm explaining is happening. Something else is really happening. And that's what's making it happen. Whereas, turn to page, hypnosis world, it's like, look, I'm going to get a handful of you that are interested in doing this, super relaxed and super focused. And we're going to shut off your conscious mind, and we're going to click in that subconscious mind and let that bad boy take over, and we're going to have a good time with it. And I told you no lies. That's actually what happens. And it works for 80-90% of the people that come up on stage. If I weren't doing a show, I could pretty much get anybody that wanted to volunteer under and to a point that we could do it. But I'm doing a show. I'm trying to entertain people. So I got about 4 or 5, maybe 6 minutes tops.
Okay.
To get, 10 people whittled down to 6 or 7 that are going to, lock in and really kick ass in the show. And then we go from there. So it's an interesting, dynamic between what I was doing and still can do, and what I'm leaning toward trying to do almost exclusively. Occasionally I will still get people that don't want the hypnosis show that want me to do, more of a mentalism show. I have a touring show that I'm part of that is a 2-act show called Between Two Minds. My stage partner, the first act of the show is him doing a mentalism show. And then the second act is me doing the hypnosis show. So it's still very much a part of my career as far as performance is concerned. I'm just not the one doing it most of the time.
Gotcha. Have you ever had people on like a stage where they don't think they could be hypnotized and you end up actually hypnotizing them? Like someone that's on the fence about it? Have you ever had that? Or do you really know when you see someone like, okay, this will work, they're more relaxed and willing to accept it?
I would say, in my show, as part of opening that show, I will explain not only the process, but ways that people have, because most people that come to my show have never seen a hypnosis show.
Yeah.
Not to mention have never been hypnotized. And they, a lot of times, only have reference points that are what they've seen on TV and in movies, which are not really what is going on here. There's no like, going on. And, look into my eyes and what, could I put somebody into trance in about a minute, just staring them down? Potentially, some people. But I do, as I'm explaining everything and who I'm looking for to come up on stage, most of the time that weeds out at least anybody that's like sitting back there thinking there's no way this guy's going to hypnotize me. I tell those people straight up, you stay back there. Right, we're trying to have a show here. Don't ruin it for everybody else.
Got to be at least open to it. Yeah,
exactly. If you're not open to it, I'm not going to sit up here and fight you. I'm going to send you back down. Every so often, even though I have 2 types of audiences. I do a lot of high school shows, and then I do general public shows. And when I'm doing a general public show and I've got a well-mixed audience, I want people 18 and over on my stage. I don't want kids mixing with adults up there on stage because I know that I am background checked. I know that I am insured, but I don't know about who's volunteered to come up here on stage.
Yeah.
They might not even know that there's some sort of weird creeper, but they might find out. And I don't want them doing that besides some kid.
Yeah.
So I will let those kids sit up there, but they're getting sent down. I'm going to let them play the game a little bit and feel like they're part of the show, but they're going to get tapped and they're going to get sent down. And, because I'm not going to just kick them out right away because that's just, I'm not derailing a train that's mid channel there. But, but for the most part, it gets whittled down pretty quickly. There are people that, I definitely have people that are disappointed, but then I've also had people that are up on stage and I'm like, were you not paying attention when I said, if you were that asshole that thinks that I'm not going to do this, to stay in your seat? Because I've had people that are sitting up there, and I'm not blowing anybody up. I'm not calling anybody out because I've had people that are up there and when I'm, people are supposed to follow my directions and do what I ask them to do because, ultimately, and I explain this in the show, that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. My role in this process is to guide you, somebody who's never gotten yourself there, most likely, into getting into this state that allows us to do some fun stuff. So it's very much when I'm telling you to breathe, you need to breathe. When I'm telling you to close your eyes, when I'm telling you to do this, you need to go do that. And I've got, I did the show last year sometime, maybe, something like that, where a guy's just sitting up there and he's just looking and he's staring straight ahead. He's not closing his eyes. And I'm not going to blow this guy up because I don't know, maybe he's got some medical condition where he can't close his eyes.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not making a big deal about it, but it's just like, all right, the first moment that it makes sense to send somebody down, you're out, buddy.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense.
It's all of that is part of the process of kind of trimming people down. I will usually bring up far more people than I should be comfortable managing over the course of the show, knowing that, I'm going to bring 8-10 people up and I'm trying to get down to 5 or 6. Like that's the goal.
Yeah.
You're making cuts. Right.
Yeah. Not a bad thing.
Because if and some people, and you see this a lot at high school shows, and more power to the people that do the shows like this, where they'll set up like 2 rows, 15 chairs each row. They'll let kids sit up in front because I will tell you that while I don't have a problem getting folks to come volunteer for my show, in a normal setting,
Mm-hmm.
when you do a high school show, everybody's ready to volunteer.
Right.
Like, you could literally be like, all right, show of hands, who wants to do this? And like 3 people in the audience won't raise their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there are some people that do this show where it's like, okay, cool, we're going to do this in a way where you're all going to stay out there sitting. Anybody who wants to participate, who wants to wake up and find themselves potentially on this stage, follow along and do what I tell you to do, and you might be up here.
So you can do big crowds like that.
Yeah, and you know, more power to those people that are willing to, you know. And again, I don't have an assistant most of the time. I mean, my stage partner, if I'm doing the dual show, can come and help out if something goes sideways. But you know, and really, you know, because a big focus is people's safety.
Yeah.
You know, when they're up there on stage, they're my responsibility, and a lot of times there's nothing to it. But I mean, I've done everything, you know, shows that are on a floor that's the same level as everybody else that's sitting in the audience. And I've done stages that are, you know, 10 feet off the ground. So obviously my responsibilities in those 2 scenarios are not the same. You know, I can't have anybody swan diving off the front of that stage into some portrait.
And it's also nice when you get to pick people like that, because you get the ones that are most concentrated for it. So it's you're really picking out those people that really are accepting it and want to concentrate to see what happens, and not just the one that's just seeing if it's, you know, they're trying to go against it or see if it doesn't work on them on purpose, or, you know what I mean? So it's kind of nice that you have that option when you do that.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, there's a fair share of those people, and every so often they will make their way up to the stage. And, you know, at the end of the day, could I get them? Yes. But do I want to? No. You know, there's a lot of people that will do this that, you know, it's, and especially if you like go onto YouTube and you start looking for like street hypnotists or whatever.
Yeah.
They're doing these shock inductions where they're yanking people's arms and doing crazy stuff like that. And
I've seen that.
You know, I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I don't need to do any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. You know, from an image standpoint, you know, while my show is fun, funny, and playful, I'm still playing this character that is a professional. So, you know, there are lines that are inherent to that, you know, who I am on stage that I just don't need to or want to cross.
Yeah.
And just don't really make any sense to.
Oh, I get that.
So when you decide you want to get into the hypnotism game, where do you go to learn that? What's the process there?
So for anybody who's interested, you know, I'll address it that way. There's a ton of books that will get you absolutely nowhere on the subject. And I say this because I've read many of these books after learning live and in person. And while all of the information that I've read in the vast majority of these books is true, and, you know, they're full of facts, they're full of the science, they're full of all this other stuff, like cover to cover, I sit here and I look at it, you know, and this is just somebody who does this on a very regular basis. I read most of these books and I'm like, I could not imagine going back to square one, starting with this book and only this book, and getting myself to the point where I could actually do this.
Right.
And it blows my mind. And maybe that's me. Maybe that's the way that I'm wired. And, you know, it's not that I can't learn things by reading and through books. I mean, I'm a goddamn trial lawyer. That's kind of how I learned most of what I do on a daily basis. But it like, there's just this kind of bridge and this disconnect that I just don't see in most of these books. And, you know, so when I learned, I went to Las Vegas, and there is a show out there that has been running, I want to say, for 13, maybe 14 years, called Hypnosis Unleashed. It's downtown. Currently, it's the longest running headline hypnosis show in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
So the show is run by Kevin Lapine. He's been doing hypnosis, I want to say, for 30 years.
Wow.
He's from Michigan. He spent some time in New Orleans pre-Katrina and ended up out in Vegas and linking up with and eventually taking over this show. The show's actually run longer than the 13 years that he's been part of it. And the one of the originators of the show was Terry Stokes. So if there's any hypnosis fans out there, you'll definitely know that name. Legendary in the hypnosis world. But Kevin ended up taking over that show, and when he does these trainings, they're super small, no more than 4 people in the class. They are super intense. It's like all day. You're in the showroom, and ultimately you're learning by doing. So we go through, I mean, we start with safety and ethics, and then we just start breaking down everything that it is that we're doing. And with only 4 of us, it gives us the ability where we, once we kind of got the fundamentals of what we were doing and how we were doing it down, it was literally us sitting in his showroom, and we would rehearse a part of the show. And then hands you a microphone and says, get your ass up on stage and then do it. So during the day, it's just us doing it for each other up on stage. And over the course of time, we're slowly building this show. So we're starting off just kind of doing these intro explanations of what's going on and how you would normally start a show.
Yeah.
And then you're getting people up on stage. And, and again, when we're doing this, we're just kind of, mocking it out. It's us in the class that are going and sitting in these seats on stage. And
can you hypnotize each other? Like, can you be hypnotized by someone?
That's what I was wondering.
For sure.
Or do you know too much that?
No, the more you know about it, the easier it is. And really, it's just kind of like I said, and how I'll explain in my shows, that it's kind of this position of getting super relaxed and super focused, all at the same time, and they just meet this nice confluence where all of the noise in your day-to-day life just shuts out. All of the stuff, the conscious mind is everything that you're thinking about all the time. And, it is like the judgment center of your mind. It is the thing, in many ways, it's what keeps you safe. It's why you don't step out in front of a moving vehicle in the street, because you're consciously aware of your surroundings and what's going on. But it's also why you didn't have the cojones to ask that girl out in high school that you really feel like you should have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when we shut that down, we don't care what we're doing. And also, that's where really the logic center is. So when we're just dealing with the subconscious mind, up isn't necessarily up, down isn't necessarily down. If I tell you that this pen, is a banana, it's a banana as far as you're concerned. And, you would need a prerequisite to that to know what a banana is. You need to have those reference points.
Yeah.
I can't just magically give you knowledge that you didn't have before. But like, in my shows, because I video all my shows, and I will, break out clips and throw stuff on social media and everything like that. But it also helps me kind of, I'm always learning about this stuff. No matter how many shows I do, no matter how long I do this, I'm always either going to conferences to learn, to speak at conferences, and just you're learning by doing a lot of the times. But you can see, like, I have a routine in most of my shows that is near the end of the show where everybody, depending on the show, if it's an adult show, the routine's a little different if I'm like at a high school show, but where the suggestion is that everybody is a Vegas showgirl or they're dancing on stage. I give no direction other than when the music starts, you will start dancing and showing off why you retired, as this famous Vegas showgirl. And just a couple of weeks ago, you sometimes just see stuff that's new that you didn't see before, and that it's coming from some reference in somebody's head.
Right.
Yeah.
I had 4 or 5 volunteers up on stage, and in the middle of this routine, where normally, because the music that I'm playing in the background of this, for the most part, again, and it changes based on the environment, based on the audience, based on whatever. Like, my show is very, very modular, and I'm always updating and changing routines. But if I'm doing a show where I can get away with pretty much everything, the music for the dance routine at the end, regardless of how I frame it, is going to be an instrumental version of Pony by Genuine. Okay. So most people will dance similar to, if they have a reference point from that music video, or just that music gets you kind of grinding and dancing in a certain way. Well, 2 or 3 of my volunteers from this show, based on, anchoring themselves to me telling them that they're going to be showgirls, are thinking classic Vegas, showgirls, kick line. Yeah. And they just start, unprompted by me, other than saying, you are famous Vegas showgirls, they just start doing this kick line together, like 2 or 3 of them in the middle of the group. And it's like, anything is possible. I had a girl in the same routine last year at a show in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. First time I had ever seen that. And this is the most fun thing about doing these shows, is that no 2 shows are ever the same, because of the people that are on stage. So people are up there and they're dancing. And this gal, who was actually one of the best volunteers that I had in the show. In fact, if you go onto my social media, there's a routine that I don't do in all of my shows. I need to have the right volunteer at the right depth to be able to do it. But I will do a routine where I become invisible on stage to that person and that person only. And I will make chairs float in the air because they can't see me, but they can see this chair.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
I watched that one where you stomp your foot once.
This girl was fantastic, right? And at the very end of the show, when we're doing the dance routine, instead of being up and dancing like everybody else, she sits down on the row of chairs, puts her legs up and crosses them, and then just starts mocking like she's smoking a cigarette. And she's just like, it's like she's some sort of old classic pimp sitting there watching her people out there work for her. And it sometimes stuff like that happens, and it takes, everything in my power to not just lose it on stage. And, it's super fun. Like the most exciting thing about doing this is that are moments like that. And they're not all in every show, but usually there's something that's unique and fun and interesting. That show that I was talking about with the kickline people, a fun moment showed up in that one at the end as I'm waking people up and removing suggestions. One of the things that I usually do in most of my shows is early on, and I'll use this recurring throughout the show, I'll have something that is no longer whatever it was, kind of like what I was explaining with the Sharpie.
Yeah.
But it becomes $100 bills. If I'm doing like a regular ticketed show, I use cocktail napkins for that. So there's cocktail napkins flying all over the place. My stage partner and I do a lot of fundraiser shows. So we'll link up with nonprofits and school groups that need to raise money for things.
That's awesome.
And, we work out a deal where a percentage of the ticket sales pays us, but then a bulk of it goes to pay them. Sure. We also have started helping them sell sponsorships to the events and everything like that. One of the things that I've started doing is I have these little rubber wristbands, kind of think about like those Live Strong bands, except mine are blue. Yeah, and they're generic. They just have my website on. They say hypnosis for a cause. So I will introduce those as then becoming $100 bills, and we're throwing those around on stage. And it's kind of a thing where I'm selling merchandise in the back. And if you want to buy one of these, 100% of the money goes toward whatever cause. These being generic allow me to just sell them at every show. I don't have to make a new one for every show, because that would not make any sort of sense.
Sure.
So if these are for sale at a show, that money's going toward a cause. And then I do a thing where if you buy some of my merch, I'll throw one of these in, and then I pay the money that goes to the cause or whatever. There's this brilliant moment at the end of the show, because people are like hoarding these throughout the show. People are stuffing them in their shirts and everything like that, especially when it's the cocktail napkins, like the stuff that I've seen, and people putting them in pockets and everything. It's that wake up moment at the end in removing all of the suggestions. And I caught it. I finally caught it on video, this moment where the eyes wake up and the hands open, and because it's it's the bands, they kind of spring out a little bit, right? And she just looks down at them, and there's just this drop on her face, this moment of disappointment of like, wait, that was just something totally different and I don't even know why these are here now. And they
the
drop.
confused look you'll get.
It was that, you know, a lot of times people will ask me, hey, is this stuff real? Having stuff like that to go back to and be like, okay, here's 2 clips back to back. This is the same person running all over the stage trying to hoard these things and collect them. And then moments later, when I take everything away and they're no longer what they were, it's like, why do I even have these? What is this? And really, like, you know, don't get me wrong. There are people that will come up, will volunteer for my show. They will put on a good show, and they may or may not have been playing along, you know, and sometimes it's tough to tell, no matter how long I've been doing this, whatever. If you are not a distraction and you are not causing a problem, unless it's very, very obvious to me, you're probably going to end up staying up there. Now, there are certainly some telltale signs. You know, a lot of times I'll have people. I mean, hell, I had a guy a year or so ago that I knew him, and he knew me before I learned hypnosis, which is a very difficult position to be in with most people. You know, when you learn this, one of the things that they tell you is don't let your friends and family be the first people that you're playing around with this on, because they don't know you as this person. So there's this inherent disbelief that you can do the thing. Okay. So they're kind of a tougher mountain to get over at first. Now, once they've seen you do this 20, 30, 50 times, boom, done. You know, no problem. They know that you can do this. They've seen people that they know do shit that they'd have never done. And it just really blows all that stuff up for them. This guy's up on stage and I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's playing along. I'm not quite sure where he is. And then there's this moment where, you know, he's wearing flip-flops and he loses one while moving around. And there is zero concern whatsoever. He's not shuffling around, trying to find it. We get to the dance routine. He's up and moving around, pays no mind to where that is. I'm like, he's a lot deeper than I thought he was. I thought that he was kind of maybe shallow, surface level. Maybe I get a little, nope. Homeboy's gone. And you know,
that was a good feeling for you right there.
It sure was, because
you know
that was one where, you know, I had been new enough to things that I was like, all right, people that I know, like I said, they tell you not to start with those folks because they know you as the other thing. Yeah. And there's just that higher level of impossibility there. But boy, oh boy, you know, so there are always those types of signs outside of just the normal, you know, looking for, you know, changes in skin tone and REM movement and fluttering in the eyes and things like that can really guide you to where people are. But yeah, I mean, it's anybody can really do it as far as, you know, getting there. Some harder than others. And again, I'm doing that part of the show in like 5-6 minutes tops. So if you're not getting there, you're getting back to your seat, because hey, it's fun to watch from back there too. Yeah. But it's, you know, most people that do it, you know, I try to track them down, and if they're willing to talk to me and hang out afterwards, it's just this super, you know, serene vibe. I try to suggest that people will wake up feeling full of energy and like they've just taken an 8-hour nap. And, you know, time distortion is a real thing when it comes to being in hypnosis, because again, your conscious mind doesn't care, and it has no mind to how long that it's taken. And a lot of people think that, boom, they were up there for like 10 seconds. And, you know, all the while they've been up there somewhere 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what version of the show I'm doing. And it's just,
So what, is there a length of time you can keep somebody hypnotized? I mean, what if they just left and they just stayed hypnotized?
Well, naturally, it's not, you're not going to get stuck in hypnosis. Okay. You know, nobody's going to get stuck in hypnosis. I have had situations, especially early on. There was a show that I did where at the very end, I forgot to take out the suggestions and didn't realize this at first. And understand
that guy's at school. That guy's at work the next day, dancing around like a chicken.
Afterwards, you know, we're hanging out in the theater, and one of the volunteers who I've known through the community is talking to the guy that runs the theater. And this is actually in that same theater that I had originally years ago approached about, bringing in magicians and everything. And she's sitting there and they're having a conversation. And all of a sudden she's just like taking cocktail napkins and stuffing them in her handbag.
Just nonchalantly,
and she's got no idea, and again, that stuff wears off over time, because the first time you go to pay for something and pull those out, eventually it's all going to click back into place.
Yeah.
Now, they're, leaving suggestions in, if they are highly illogical like that, they don't last long. If they even last an hour afterwards, there's not really any sort of like danger to it or anything like that. However, there are people, and I'm not really in this space. I just do the stage shows and the performance stuff and the silly, whatever fun crap we're going to do tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But hypnotherapists, I mean, there is a lot of very, very valuable, positive change work that people can do. I mean, quitting smoking is one of the most well-known things that people sometimes turn to hypnosis to do.
I was going to ask you about that. My aunt actually did that, and she went to the hypnotist and did it, and she never smoked again. I don't think she still has to this day.
Any suggestion that's left there that your mind and body wants, it's going to just go with. And the way that I really explain it to people when it comes to that kind of stuff, and again, I don't have a clinical certification. So my understanding of this is rooted in understanding what I understand about hypnosis generally and knowing how it would apply in this type of setting. But if you think about habits, all right, whether you're trying to make or break a habit, they say that you need to do or not do something for 21 consecutive days for it to, at a minimum, to even start becoming a habit, because you've got to like set that and put that path into place, or eliminate that path if it's something that you're trying to get rid of. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing that gets in the way and why you need that repetition over the 21 days or more is the conscious mind. It's that distracted, well, how about this? I need that crutch. Whatever. Bypassing that is really sum and substance to being like, we're going to start this habit forming at day 21. We have jumped past the gatekeeper. We have planted the habit where we want the habit, and it's there. Can we get to day 22 tomorrow? And was her experience a one-on-one, or was she in a big group? Because people do it both ways.
I believe she was one-on-one. She never really told me much about it, just that she had done it, and that she said that when she tried to have a cigarette afterwards, it just tasted terrible, and like that was the thing that they implanted, so she just could never do it again.
Yeah, a lot of times there will be some sort of an anchor. They will change the, and a lot of it's perspective building. I mean, if you think about it, somebody that smokes, and I don't smoke and I never have, so but when you go smoke a cigarette, you're doing so for what, like 30, 45 seconds, and a minute tops. And if you smoke a pack a day, which is what, like 20 cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 20 cigarettes, which is a ton to smoke, right? A pack a day. Sure. That's kind of like that benchmark for you've got a problem.
Right.
If you smoke each cigarette for a minute each, that's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a third of an hour. It's such a small percentage of your day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So are you a smoker? I don't think so. You barely smoke as it is. So as you start to kind of shift that paradigm into, I don't really smoke that much as it is, it kind of makes it easier to drop off from almost nothing. And again, you're not doing that in a conversational mode necessarily. And again, there's a bunch of different kind of approaches when it comes to the clinical hypnosis side of things, but you're doing that in trance. You're having that conversation with somebody's subconscious mind. Yeah. So any logical disconnect that you're being like, well, wait a minute, 20 cigarettes is still a lot of freaking cigarettes. None of that's happening. That part of the conversation is gone, because we've taken the conscious mind and said, get over there in the corner and take a time out, buddy. And, we're right there at the, the power center that runs everything, your breathing and your heart beating and everything like that you're not thinking about. We're in that mode. We're going into autopilot, and we're reprogramming this aspect of your life. So people have used it for weight loss, which is very, very much food choice, portion control, things like that. One of the early building block suggestions for weight loss is that anytime that you go to a restaurant and you order a meal, when you order that meal, you're also going to order a to-go box at the same time that you order the meal. When it comes, you're going to cut everything in half, and you're going to put half of that in the box before you even take your first bite.
Yeah.
So, you've cut the portion control in half. And again, none of this is happening in a conversation like this where it's like, yeah, but, look at me. I'm going to eat that whole sandwich.
Right.
No, right. We're not talking about look at me, you. We're talking about, the power core of everything that's running everything. And now it's there. We've gotten behind the curtain. We can make some real things happen there. It's certainly a world that I'm super curious about. And
is that something down the road where you're going to want to pursue to try to help people?
From a knowledge standpoint, yes. From a practical starting over to build a professional practice from square one, probably not.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Almost every show I will have somebody approach me afterwards. Hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?
I was wondering that.
I've built a small but growing network of professional practitioners. I could I don't, but here is somebody that you should talk to. And, one of the cool things from that networking perspective is, like with any profession or even hobby, there are conferences, and there are multiple conferences. With hypnosis, because there's just such a wide range of them.
Yeah.
Some of those conferences are just hypnosis, and they're not categorized specifically. So you will have practitioners there that do stage. You will have practitioners there that do street. You will have practitioners there that do clinical, and everywhere in between. So the ability to kind of network with those folks that aren't on stage, or vice versa, is super there. There are obviously more like every, I guess, January, February, end of January, February, depending on how the calendar falls, the Performing Hypnosis Summit. Sometimes there are attendees that are clinical, that are curious about the performing side of things, but those, that summit is all stage, street, and any other sort of performance based. You're not going to have a clinical track in something like that. But like in September is the Michigan Hypnosis Conference, which is more of the wider breadth of, there's clinical practitioners, stage practitioners, and there are like tracks of different studies and lectures depending on who you are, what you're interested in. So
So how big is the gap between what you do and doing it clinically, other than maybe paperwork or some sort of certificate or something? how big of a divide is there?
I think a lot of it is really just, do I want to make that jump? The process of getting certified is something that I could fly somewhere and do in a week. Foundationally, I've got most of the pieces in place. And really, could I do it tomorrow in a way that would not be the way I want to do it, but still do, positive work for people? Yes.
Okay.
Because really all I need to do is know what it is that you need help with, and have a book with a bunch of different scripts for a bunch of different scenarios. Because when I can get you into trance, I can get you hypnotized, I can get to where we need to be with the subconscious mind. And after that, your eyes are closed. If I tell you to keep your eyes closed, you don't know if I'm recalling what I'm telling you. You're not even really super hyper aware the same way that we are aware of the conversation we're having right now. So, the 10-cent ability to just read the thing out of a guide to do the change work is certainly there. Do I want to be that guy that's doing that? Hell no. You know, that's not for me. But, you know, could I do it? And could I do positive things there? Now, the insurance that I have for my stage work precludes me without having additional insurance from doing clinical work. So there's that too. But that's just a phone call and an application.
Paperwork.
You know, getting the errors and omissions insurance to do that and not, you know, get canceled out insurance wise on all fronts, because you know, welcome to the world.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What do you think you had to learn about the human mind that you didn't know before you started doing this?
Not too much that I haven't talked about here, you know, in this conversation. Just kind of understanding, you know, I mean, I didn't really have any formal psychology training or anything like that, other than, you know, whatever core classes they make you take in undergrad. So really most of what I learned was that what we're dealing with and how it works, and this is where we're going and why that works, you know, that the subconscious mind works the way that it does, and away we go. So not a ton, nothing that really we haven't talked about here.
Yeah. When you went to class the first time when you were interested in Vegas, when you flew out there, how long was that class? Was it multiple classes, or was it just a weekend? It was for people that are interested in this.
Yeah, week long. And so the way that works, obviously I talked about kind of the daytime classroom portion of it.
Yeah.
We would break at 6 p.m. and then we would come back, because he does a stage show every night at 9. So we would be back in the showroom at 8 p.m. And each night, at least 4 of the nights, will always overlap with nights that he has shows. And each night, one of the students is on stage helping out and are able to do a routine, you know, in a headline Vegas stage show, which is, for a lot of people, I mean, I took this class with a guy who was a computer scientist.
Really? Oh, wow.
No stage experience whatsoever. Like, I had been doing
very introverted.
Yeah, very, very reserved, very introverted, and now he's out there doing shows, which is like sweet, you know. So he had no knowledge or stage experience or anything coming in, but you know, each night one of us is up there on stage helping, doing routines, and then each night one of us, who's obviously not the one up there on stage helping, volunteers and goes up on stage, so that you kind of really understand from that perspective what everybody's dealing with. I think when you're there and you're in that position and then you can reflect back on it, it's super helpful to not become that asshole that's going to do ridiculous shit on stage. You know, and when I do these shows, when I am crafting and structuring routines and coming up with new wacky zany ideas, you know, don't get me wrong, there's somewhere in the back of my mind, I want somebody on my stage to say or do something that when I put it on social media, they become the next Hawk to a girl or whatever. Who doesn't want something to go by? You know, who that's promoting anything doesn't want to be part of it, right? But every time I'm up there and I'm doing anything like that, you know, there's this perspective of, am I getting booked back here?
Okay.
You know, are they going to ask me back? Or 3 months from now, when one of my colleagues contacts this venue and says, hey, I'd like to do a hypnosis show. Are you interested in that? Have I made the road more challenging for that person to get a response?
That makes sense.
Or have I paved the way for them to be like, hell yeah, Judge Mentalist was here 3 months ago and that was kick ass. Come on down. Let's put some dates in place. Like, I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that not only is getting asked back, but is paving the way for this to be, you know, a super cool and fun thing to do. Because if you do it right and you treat it right and you respect people, and don't get me wrong, we're doing fun and playful and silly things. you know, and sometimes depending on the show and the audiences, we kind of get into more adult themes, but we're not crossing ridiculous lines. We're not doing anything up there that anybody's going to get canceled if that video does go viral.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, nobody's losing their job or anything over that. You know, it's super important for me because while there are seemingly endless places to perform these shows, I don't want to burn, you know, I don't want to burn any bridges for myself or for other people, you know. And there's nothing easier than the opposite of that, of being that guy that gets asked back. You know, a lot of my shows are rebookings. At some point in time, I will build that calendar to the point where I don't take new work or much new work because my calendar is so full of, hey, that was really great. Let's do the fundraiser again next year. And, you know,
that's awesome.
That just keeps the calendar full, which is great.
And I got to say, just watching your videos, it's a lot of fun to watch those videos. So I just found myself just scrolling through each one of them. And I mean, it's a great time. And especially with you on stage, with how you handle these people, I mean, it's fun to watch. So it's not one of those videos where I just look at it and just scroll right past it. I actually watch the whole thing. Great shows.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's like I said, I want it to be fun. I want it to be, and again, it's super important for the folks that I have up on stage for them to not feel embarrassed about what they did, and you know, to truly make them the stars of the show, not just, you know, 'cause like a lot of times you'll get comedians that'll do shows and they'll just get like locked into doing crowd work. So they'll pick one or two people and they'll pick on them for most of the night. And it's like, did you have any of your own material, or are you just looking for people that, you know, that looked weird or stood up in the middle of your set and you were just going to
make them the material?
Make them the material, but not in a redeeming way. You know, like this stuff, a lot of times the theme of my show is about, you know, the superpowers that we all have inside of us and unlocking those. And again, we're unlocking these things in playful ways, whether it's making people astronauts or showgirls or, you know, going fishing or whatever stuff we end up doing. But none of it is something, you know, there used to be, and I'm sure that there still are, like old school performers that would get people up and grinding on chairs and doing ridiculous stuff like that. And it's like, you can have a really great time and not cross those lines. You know, and don't get me wrong, there are shows in venues where people are like we did a fringe festival, like not the standard fringe festival, but they did a fringe after dark. So none of the shows started before 10 p.m.
Okay.
And they were like, pull out all the stops, do whatever the hell you want. Like if you want adult material, we want adult material. Like, let's take it to the next level. So it's not to say that I have not done and won't do material, but you better request it. And I will tell you what I am doing to make sure that your idea of crossing, you know, pushing the envelope,
they match up,
my idea of pushing the envelope, because you know, I don't want to show up with one of those huge 11 by whatever manila envelopes and you were thinking the little white number 10 envelope, you know. We need to be pushing the same envelope here, because again, I'm always, you know, I want to get booked back and I don't want to burn the bridge for somebody else that might come there after me. And again, I don't want people to have a bad time. And if you cross the line, sure, you might be in an auditorium of 200 people, but if you're that crowd work comedian that chooses to go and pick on somebody, 199 people might have thought they had a fun time, but you've still ostracized and pissed off one person. And you know, sometimes people deserve that, but I'm not interested to judge them and determine that they don't, you know, that they deserve to be picked on.
Have you ever had anybody have a real bad experience after you've hypnotized them?
Not in any way that has been brought to my attention. You know, everybody's that I've had on stage so far has either gotten kicked out or, you know, sent back to their seats, or, you know, I get stories about all sorts of different, I thought, you know, I felt this way or I felt that way, but nothing negative. You know, we did spend a lot of time in the training learning about how to handle when people have adverse reactions. And a lot of that will come from some sort of pre-existing trauma. And if you unlock something that sends people into tailspin, but
how do you shut that down?
That I keep my material vanilla, but like, I'm not going to do, you know, a lot of it is just being aware of the audience that you're with, the surroundings. Like if I did a show that was at, let's say, a VA hospital or something, and I know that I've got combat veterans here,
right?
I'm not going to do a routine where people are, you know, where anything that might, you know, there aren't going to be any helicopters in those.
Right.
Yeah. Flying overhead. Like we're going to pick and choose material that's not, you know, is it still possible for somebody to have some trauma, some reference point to something that seems vanilla and benign that comes up in my show? Absolutely. And if I step on a landmine like that, I'm going to deal with it. But I don't want to be the person that's throwing those landmines out there and trying to tiptoe around them. Like, you know, there's a degree to which being in the room is super important as a performer. And I don't care if it's doing hypnosis or doing any other sort of stage show, you know, like the thing that, while some people take that kind of crowd work comedy a little too far, that's a skill. That is a talent to be in the room, not be on autopilot. You know, you'll see a lot of performers, whether they're comedians, whether they're, you know, magicians or mentalists or whatever, that have a script in their head and they just stay on that script. And the building, you know, next door could be burning down and they're going on their way. And, you know, it just, being in the room super important, because you know, you've got the opportunity to connect with audiences that way, to show them that you're paying attention to them, not just paying attention to you.
And you can pivot, also, you know, if you need to.
For sure. I mean, and obviously, like I explained before, like some routines, like the invisibility routine.
Yeah.
If you were to watch every single one of my shows, as much as I want to put routines like that in every show, I can't. I don't always have the right people at the right depth that are going to be animated enough, you know, like, 'cause sometimes I can get people in a really great spot, but just creative, let's just say that kind of creative minded people.
Yeah.
They're really great to have on stage.
Right.
Those moments come predominantly from those folks. You know, the gal that ended up after the show, when I forgot to take the suggestions out with the napkins, is actually part of the local art council, you know? So it's like, it's no surprise that you were where you were based on what you do otherwise. You know, and it's not to say that that you have to be that to really be a great volunteer, but there's a little bit of a head start element to that.
You know, when you get people that go really deep and you talk to them after the show, what do they describe? I mean, is there any reference to them that point that they can say, you know, I knew I was under, or is it just they just have no idea?
It really varies. There's a spectrum. There are people that, even though, like, at the end of my show, at the same time that I'm removing the suggestions, I'm letting everybody know that they're going to remember everything that they did. And some people remember everything that they did. Some people remember absolutely nothing. Like 6-8 months ago, my daughter, who's in high school, we did a show at her boyfriend's school, and it was a fundraiser for the local marching band. And somehow, I don't know, maybe she's taken some of the suggestion and influence that I command. She got him to volunteer. And he's up on stage, and he's
That's a terrible idea to get.
There's a video in my feed with a kid with big hair that's like in the dance routine, whipping his head around. That's him, and he remembers absolutely nothing.
Wow.
Like, and of course we've got this all on video, so it's like, here you go, you can see it. And he's like, I remember none of this.
How many questions he has? You know what I mean?
It's just a time warp for them. Then they just.
It definitely can be. I mean, and I've heard, and again, I don't know how deep you guys dug into my stuff, but a lot of stuff that mixed in that is like testimonials from people. I've had people tell me that like we do this scary movie scene sometimes. And again, all of this is drawing off of some reference that these folks have in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not setting much of a scene for them because I want them to kind of go with this and be whatever it is. And she's telling me afterwards, she's like, man, when you were doing the movie thing, I thought for sure that I was running in a field from somebody. And when you saw me, you probably saw me reach and grab something. I thought I had this rifle that my grandfather used to have in my hand, and I was ready to go to town and take out whatever was chasing. So, a lot of this stuff, like what is being visualized. And again, as humans, some of us are very visual learners, some of us are very auditory. So the experience naturally is going to be different for everybody because of how they, there are people who don't have an internal monologue. So what they experience is going to be drastically different from somebody who does.
Yeah.
And, there's no way to control that because you are just tapping into, I'm not going to change the structure of somebody's mind. I don't know that you could fix isn't the right word, but I don't know that you could adjust somebody's ability to, or lack thereof, having that internal monologue. But again, that all comes through in how somebody perceives what's going on. So for that, it was like super real. Like she was in some field running from, some zombie or something, but ready to take it out when the time was right.
Yeah. The fact that she inserted the gun part was
wow.
Yeah.
But so I mean, that experience is very different for everybody. I mean, some people feel super, super relaxed. Like I am trying, I want to leave everybody with something. And one of the things that I will normally put into there is that when you wake up, you are going to have, 2 times as much energy, 5 times as much energy as you've had in the last couple of days combined. You're going to feel refreshed. You're going to feel relaxed. And that happens for people. I mean, sometimes people will come out of trance and be a little bit groggy or whatever, but for the most part, people are like, boom, let's go. Let's take over the world, which is kind of a weird thing to do to people when most of my shows are ending around 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Right. You just amped them up.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody's going to get mad at me, they're going to get mad at me about feeling like they just took a huge power nap.
Right.
And I'm going to be okay with it.
Well, Judge, man, it's endlessly fascinating. I mean, it's the whole hypnosis thing to me is wild. The human brain is such an amazing thing. It's just the things honestly, you can make it do. And
scientifically, we've still really only understand such a small percentage of what's going on and what is capable, what we are capable of. But really, like
the fact that it can be manipulated in such a way, I guess you have a good word for it, is just wild. That someone like you can come along and manipulate your thoughts and stuff. It's crazy to think about.
And with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Sure.
So, the ability though to take that and be positive about that and empower people and really unlock things that, there are people that will look at this stuff and think that there's no way I would have ever done that. I have people thank me for opening them up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And
I can see that.
I had somebody in one of my recent shows where one of our mutual friends approached me like a week or two before the show, and they were like, "Hey, she's super concerned. She doesn't want you to pick her." And I'm like, "I don't pick anybody in my show. Like, I've got chairs that are set up on stage, and I explain what's going on and how this is going to work. And then it gets to the point where I'm like, when the music starts,
they choose. You
guys come fill these chairs. First come, first serve." I don't. There isn't a show of hands, and I'm pointing. I want you, and you. And even if I did it that way, you'd have to raise your hand. But for whatever reason, midway through that explanation, and when that music started, she came up. I was like, "What just happened here? Your friend specifically told me that you did not want to be up here, and here you are." So
that's awesome.
Wow, I mean, the whole art of it is crazy to me. But Judge, we're gonna wrap it up, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. It's endlessly fascinating. Got anything you want to plug? Got any shows coming up?
I'm always doing shows. If you go to judgementalist.com or betweentwominds.com, you'll find all of my shows. They're all going to be on judgementalist.com. But if you're also interested in seeing that 2-part show, those are going to be on both sites. But for any of your listeners who are in Oregon, it's and I'm going to butcher this, the Deschutes County Fair, which is the first week of August. I'll be out there doing shows. There's actually going to be a group of us because our group is going to be doing multiple shows throughout the day. And then I've got 5 shows coming up in September at the Rochester, New York Fringe Festival. All of those shows are going to be me doing solo shows. But for anybody who's in Rochester that's also interested in what my stage partner is doing, we both have individual shows running that week. So we're at different venues, but the Fringe Fest, our show runs an hour and a half plus an intermission. So none of the Fringe festivals want anything over 70 minutes. So we're like, all right, cool. We're going to split it. We're going to apply separately. So we'll be up there the 11th through the 15th of September. Again, those tickets actually go on sale next week. So I don't know when this drops, but they go on sale July 23rd, I think. So anybody that's in or around Rochester, come hang out, come see me. I'm always hanging around after the show. So come up and talk to me. Tell me if you learned about it on this podcast. That'd be pretty cool to connect to some people.
That'd be cool.
That'd be great. Do you ever make your way down to Florida?
What part of Florida are you guys in?
Southwest.
Okay. So, I mean, my sister-in-law lives in Orlando.
Okay.
We get down there. I mean, the one thing that I do a lot of, and I'm actually in the process of developing and launching a whole new website that's focused on this, are fundraiser shows for school groups and nonprofits. And for the most part, basically, these are no-risk scenarios. So somebody contracts with me, I'm getting paid a percentage of the ticket sales. I've got a guide that I give people to help them, because most people don't know how to fill a room. So I give these organizations the tools to sell the tickets and fill the room. So awesome. Honestly, I go wherever, and it doesn't matter. It's just a scheduling thing. So will I get down there? It's certainly possible. It's really only a matter of time.
We'll have to keep an eye out for it, because we're not far from Orlando, and we're always there.
Yeah. So somehow that part of Florida just draws people, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's where it's all happening.
Yeah, Universal Studios.
Oh yeah,
Judge, man, thanks for spending some time with us today and explaining everything. It was a great time. I appreciate you.
It's definitely a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
be well. Have a good one.
Thank you.